Hey, White Sox fans, thanks for hanging with us through that break. We are back with the second half of the Side Sox podcast. I believe it's number 35 of this 2022 year, a year very different than last year. Boy, we were just having fun. Boy, remember we did like 60 Field of Dreams podcasts. I had like Colleen and I forget who else. I don't know, Jackie. They were like yelling at me about how stupid Field of Dreams was. We had a whole podcast devoted to what idiot I am for liking Field of Dreams. There's rumors. Not sure if Dante provided those rumors. In fact, Dante, I need the Harry Carey hologram update. I would not want to watch that thing. I try to avoid watching the Cubs. Apparently, Papa Dante like ropes you into going to Wrigley Field or something sometimes, or, I don't know, you just find yourself in the park, but not, claiming that you have any particular affinity for the Cubs, but what went on with a hologram and how many times did it accidentally cuss?
Shockingly, no cursing, but they decided let's go with the Harry Carey, like Tupac, like the Tupac whole thing they did at Coachella, but Harry Carey doing the 7th inning stretch, which, oh man, that was a thing. That was a thing.
I like the fact that there are people who are gonna hate Field of Dreams, but also somehow like that hologram. I want to have a focus group with that group of people, and I'll run away.
Can I make a suggestion?
Yes.
Can we make the Harry Carey hologram the new manager of the White Sox?
It would be an improvement. Of course, you could hologram at some point you could hologram Terry Bevington, though still alive, as far as I know, dear Terry, and you might actually be doing a slightly better job because at least there'd be some fire. There'd be like fist fights in the stands, weird cussing, weird calling for relievers who are not warming up. Good times. But I guess he took some contending teams into the tank as well. Anyhow, we are going to try to be, it's the essay portion of the podcast. We're going to talk about what we would change with this team. Now, granted, there are some very, very obvious things, but still, I'm going to force all of my guests to actually commit to something. We discussed many times the need to hand the pink slip to Tony La Russa, and that might be your answer, but we're going to go both sort of short term, maybe immediate in terms of with an eye toward maybe saving the season. Again, 3.5 outs, strange to talk about saving the season, but also 500, very reasonable in mid-August to be talking about having to rescue the season. Maybe what you do immediately, try to jolt this team into playoff contention, and maybe, who knows, do a little damage in the playoffs. You get there, you get to dance. I don't know. And then maybe long-term, what are you going to do with this team to really change things to, fundamentally change where this team's at? Presuming we all think it needs fundamental change. Not quite so sure how everybody's going to choose, but I'm going to let Dante continue rolling. Start me off with the thing you would do right now to try to inject this team and give it the kick it needs in the last 6 weeks to get into the playoffs.
All right, so it depends on if the White Sox are more like the Phillies or if they're more like the Angels. Fire Tony, screw it. Hopefully gonna do it at the end of the season anyway. It's the easiest answer. But it's like, I'm going easy answer simply because if we're like the Phillies, it might kick the ass a little bit, be like, okay, we might actually have to take this seriously for half a minute. Or they could be like the Angels and decide that going down the deepest, darkest hole is fine. The hole that makes you think about trading Shohei and makes people say, let's trade Mike Trout. So push come to shove, we could end up with some people saying, maybe we don't need Luis Robert. I'm not going to be one of those people. I will be fighting those people. But we could go down that rabbit hole somehow. But I'd rather us just get rid of La Russa. I hated it when the Cubs decided, let's wait until not the Cubs, until when the Bears decide, let's wait until the end of the season and fire Nagy. So White Sox, don't wait till the end of the season and fire La Russa.
Adrian, where are you falling on this? What injects this team?
Short term, the biggest impact would be firing Tony. That's probably not going to happen. So I would have to vote probably Menachino next, just as at least a signal to the team that like, hey, whatever's happening is not good enough. And like maybe try to get some kind of energy. Maybe they go on a, Frank Menachino revenge tour, just to try to prove that he wasn't the problem. Like whatever it takes to motivate these guys, there needs just to be accountability for somebody that's not Dallas Keuchel, because that accountability was not a message to anybody, except for that they only really care if they're paying you too much, so
Yeah.
But yeah, that's short term. I think those are the two answers, but one is more likely to happen, but I don't think either does.
The revenge tour stats immediately, 38% of all batted balls in play, just pop-ups over catcher. That's all. That'll be the revenge. Jordan, thoughts on what might immediately, or I don't know, rescue the season? I guess that's how we're posing it.
I mean, I'm not going to repeat what everyone else has said and fire Tony. I find someone who can play the outfield, because I don't like seeing an outfield of, what was it the other day? It was Gavin Sheets, AJ Pollock in center, and Andrew Vaughn. I'd like, there was last night, there was a couple of times where it was like, man, if we'd had a better outfield defense or someone who could throw the ball from the outfield, I don't care if they can hit. I just want someone who can field the ball that's above average.
Yeah. Yeah. And Trevor, I'm going to jump right to you on that. One thing that you've spoken of, I think, is just this utter, I mean, granted, it doesn't take a former player, it doesn't take any sort of brain surgeon to know this, but I think you've spoken specific about the utter lack of fundamentals on this team. I mean, simple stuff that really even little league teams manage to convert on, hitting cutoff men, et cetera. But, broader than that, is there something you do with this team to get them not to the 6 games that'll force you to give up on them, but actually get you back and engaged?
Yeah. Well, right now, as we're recording this, the Field of Dreams game is in the 9th inning. So I can still say this, but there's only one person on the face of the earth that has ever managed a team to a successful Field of Dreams game win. And he's sitting in the White Sox dugout.
Don't fire him!
La Russa.
Yeah.
It's not Tony La Russa. It's
true.
Miguel Cairo.
That's
because
true.
Tony La Russa was suspended for the Field of Dreams game.
Yep.
So let's get Miguel Cairo at the helm. I want, if I'm him, I'm telling him, okay, Tony may have told you we can jog it down to first to prevent injury. Hey, it's go time now. We got to win. You're hustling it out. There's nothing that makes me more mad than seeing Luis Robert jogging over to a ball and Nicky Lopez taking second right in his face. So it's hustle. It's 100% of the time. That Eaton dude, I've never even heard of him before this series, but that Eaton dude out in right field, sprinting over to the wall and crashing into it to prevent that double. That's what the White Sox need. And then what Adrian was saying as well, ultimately it comes down to the players. I know I was talking about Menachino. It comes down to the players. The players have to produce, but if you fire Menachino, at least that sends a message to them, whether it was Menachino's fault or it's the player's fault, something to let it fire under this team.
Okay, Trevor, Joe, hang with me just a second here. Trevor, let me follow up again, coming from recent playing days. Is that something, what you're saying, hey, Cairo comes in and says, forget, we got all bread, screening new t-shirts. We're hustling the first, whatever the new lingo is going to be. Can you do that? Can you do that at a professional level? Can you do that now, 5-6 through the season? Do you think that switch can be turned?
It really depends on the relationship that Cairo currently has with the team. I don't know if he's built up that trust or that level of respect, but it can go one of two ways. Either they completely abandon ship and totally give up on the team, and they're headed right to the spot where they're headed right now, or they can rally around Cairo or rally around Chris Johnson or whoever they bring up for Menachino, or rally around the firing of Menachino, like Adrian was saying, and say, hey, we want to prove that Menachino was doing fine or something, whatever it may be, some sort of change to hopefully light a fire under them, because the alternative is exactly where they're going right now.
Joe, it's your task to rescue them from where they are going right now. Now, you maybe were the most forgiving. I don't know what my answer to the question would be when I give up on the team. I guess I can't. So I guess I can't answer the question because I can't let the beloved South Side Sox site go dark. But Joe, what would you do to inject this team with the energy it needs to, I don't know, get closer?
Yeah, we mentioned it a little bit on the first half of the podcast, which is that the team has no energy. The manager has a lot to do with that. in addition to his many flaws with the tactical decisions in game. I think the one thing that is possible to do that could be done, in theoretically in the blink of an eye would be to fire Tony. In terms of things that are, I guess, nothing that would be within the control of anyone within the organization necessarily, besides, I guess, the players themselves. If Leury Garcia found his 2021 version of himself, that would be a huge step up over what he has contributed this year. And we got a taste of retro Yasmani Grandal today. One of the few bright spots in the offense, even despite all those hits that they had, not a lot of overall bright spots in the offense. So the 2021 versions of Grandal and Garcia, I think would light a spark under the team if they were able to get back to their normal selves.
All right, so 4, send Tony to the farm, and 1, deliver whatever pregame meal Leury was eating last year to him for the whole rest of the season now, and just see what happens. Because yes, we do need that Leury, who ended up hitting that very long home run that Adrian would not trade back. He wants all 3 years of the Leury Garcia experience, and White Sox, don't you dare cheat him of that. Let's get a little broader, team. Let's talk about something, maybe more institutionally that goes beyond this season, because let's face it, it's extremely likely. I believe the playoff chances, they're probably down in the 30s again. It's not great playoff chances. But even if they make it, yes, we've all been through it. Yeah, they're going to get swept, whatever. They won't even show up because they're embarrassed. Sure. Okay, so it's not going to be a World Series this year. Okay, we got it. What we were promised will not be delivered. But okay, so looking beyond that then, we're in the off season. We're looking to the rest of the 2020s. We're looking at this window of contention, whatever it is. It's shattered now. It's nailed shut, whatever it is. How do you open that back up? What do you do with this team? Where do you start? What's at least one thing you would want to do to this team to really and truly change it? I know there's some real easy answers. Maybe go beyond ownership, general manager, or manager change, although those are fair answers as well. Adrian, let's go back to you and start us off here. Something a little more fundamental. What would you do?
Like outside of obviously, you need to change at least the manager, if not the general manager, going forward. I think they're just in need of a reset. Out of the two, Tony, I think, is the easiest to pop out. I would go as far as to say, if you were actually bringing Tony back next year, which is the rumor that he's coming back next year, then you might as well just trade Dylan Cease, because you're not going to compete. You might as well let's get ready for the next run, because you're going to let Tony do this farewell tour and go out on his own terms this time. But they just need guys that come in here and actually look at the players they have and use them to their value, rather than trying to just push some kind of system or belief system onto them. Not every player is made the same. Holding all of these players to, well, Jose Abreu can hit to the opposite field and get his average up, and he's doing fine. You can't hold everybody to that, same level. Tony Gwynn could hit to all fields, but not everybody's Tony Gwynn.
Yeah.
If Gavin Sheets is being stunted in development, or Andrew Vaughn is being stunted in his development by not just letting him get up here and be comfortable and rake and think less, that needs to be addressed. A guy like Leury Garcia, that's been nothing but valuable for, 7 years almost now, is completely useless in the hands of a supposed Hall of Fame manager who just has no idea how to use him to his strengths. He only wants to force him into some mold that he has in his mind from a player that he used to know that, I'm not even sure that he calls these guys by their right names. I feel like he just calls them by random Cardinals players' names.
Yep. Oh yeah, totally Eckstein. Totally.
He's just trying to fit them into an archetype of what he thinks they should be, rather than looking at that player and saying, I think this is what he does well. Let's concentrate on that.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure. I was envisioning asking the question of you, Adrian, about the whole area. Would you get rid of him, whatever? I'm thinking, just in the off season, I can imagine Rick like maybe just sending like a little text at Tony or like a little short call, like, hey, what do we do with Lauria? And I'm sure it wasn't even just like, okay, yeah, I want him back. I really need him. He's max 9 or whatever. I'm sure he was just like 315, and he was just expected. Okay, that's done. Just give it to him. I mean, granted, I can't imagine that Rick is just that ineffectual at this point as a GM, but at this point, who knows?
I think Rick saw the value in having a guy that plays all those positions just with all the injuries last year. But like, you knew something was weird right off the bat because they just did not want to play Larry in the outfield, and he's like, one of your better defensive corner outfielders at least, just because he's not a great center fielder, but he can play it over the rotting corpse of AJ Pollock that we've seen in the outfield so far this year. Like, so just the fact that they're not utilizing that big pool of value that he has to you as a guy that can play multiple positions, and they only want to make him a middle infielder, like, it's just very weird. And I don't know if it's the trainers or Tony or the club. Like, I don't know. We're going to get answers for this, 5-10 years from now when people start talking about it. But right now it's just anybody's guess.
I can speak for Trevor even with one arm, but I would dare say the 5 of us could be as good or better defensive outfielders than some of the corner outfielders they've been running out there. And who knows, maybe 1 or 2 of us could be better in center field than AJ Pollock. Jordan, not immediate, but sort of long-term institutional change you would want to see happen with the White Sox beyond 2022.
Wow, there's a million different things I can think of. I think it would be cool and completely unrealistic to see if we can try and sign Aaron Judge this offseason, but that's completely unrealistic. I think getting rid of Rick Hahn, I think he's hampering this team. I don't care if it's like whatever Jerry said or whatever, that he hasn't fired Tony La Russa by now, but he's kind of being too much of a yes man, and just, dude wasted however much money on Leary and bullpen arms this offseason when he could have gotten someone good, or given Carlos Rodon a qualifying offer or whatever. And if we're not in playoff contention by trade deadline 2024, just, I guess, rebuild again.
Yeah. As much as we get down on Tony for being like, passive or lazy, Rick Hahn, he cannot be proud of the job he has done, maybe at all. Certainly not recently. Dante, longer term, I imagine involves the shifting of ownership of this team, but that, or what else you got?
Oh, don't give me ownership of this squad. But I've said it before, so gonna say it again. It starts from the farm, and if the guy that like Rick Hahn's job is farm management, so that's not the only reason he should be gone. I mean, it's probably in the middle of the reasons, but not the only reason. But I would say the team needs to make the farm a robust farm. I've said before, I'd rather them be more like the Dodgers, where they can trade the farm guys and still have 3 other guys who can play that position. There's a problem when you have to have like 3 first basemen playing corner outfield. Why do you not have an outfielder you can be like, oh, that guy, come play the corner for a week or 2? Why is Lynn Sosa gonna get sent back down to AAA or AA, whichever one he was in at the moment? The second that they say, okay, we have Tim Anderson healthy, when Lynn Sosa should begin as many at bats as he can that are valuable right now. Like, the way they mismanage this roster from the lowest level to the highest level is just an indictment of this regime. And Tony La Russa isn't the only member of this regime that's been here for a while. Also, I did a little bit of Wikipedia searching on Menachino. Mm-hmm. He was a player that had 5.4 WAR. He batted, let me make sure I'm getting my numbers right. Let me make sure. 5.4 WAR, batted 240, 36 home runs, 149 RBIs. The reason he's not telling guys to hit bombs is because he did not hit bombs.
Dante with the indictment, and he's got the receipts to back it up. Okay, yeah, you heard Dante. We would prefer the White Sox farm to be like the Dodgers. Okay, go do it, White Sox. I mean, maybe you just got to take all of the Dodgers guys. It is despicable that the Dodgers just continue to just send guys throughout the major leagues, send all sorts of prospects everywhere. And still, I don't know what I saw. They got like 9 top 50 or top 100. They got some ungodly, ridiculous amount, even with they're giving everybody away, and just more guys come through. One thing that's always bugged me, although you could argue that the White Sox rookie league teams aren't really that good. So why would you actually give them licensed top rate too? But why in the world, if you're allowed to, why wouldn't you just max out your teams? You know, I understand 2 terrible DSL teams or 2 terrible Arizona teams. I don't know, they're just going to make everybody depressed or something, but it gives you twice the rostered guys to maybe catch fire.
But Jerry could get a new couch.
That's true. Hey, you know, I once worked for a magazine that right before it went under, the publisher bought a Porsche, and then he decided to fold the magazine. So yeah. Oh, that hurts. That hits me personally, Adrian. And yes, he might need that new couch. Joe Resis, give me your solution longer term for this White Sox team.
Yeah, the defensive positioning is absolutely a big one. I feel kind of bad for Andrew Vaughn and Gavin Sheets for having to run out to the outfield positions, knowing that, you know, that wasn't how they imagined their time in Major League Baseball going. In addition to that, yeah, like the way that the White Sox built up their farm system back a couple of years ago, when it was one of the best in the league, they did it in a way that wasn't sustainable, in that in order to get their farm system to an elite level, they traded a lot of premium trade chips, and also had some early draft picks, as opposed to simply just, you know, signing in a player from, say, from the Dominican Republic, you know, who's a very raw product, and who no one really thinks, you know, is a super talent, you know, right off the bat, and, you know, developing them almost from scratch into a good major leaguer. Like, their track record for that is very poor. So being able to have a sustainable way of having a solid pipeline of prospects coming up through their system would go a long way for them.
To your first point, Joe, the oral histories are lazy, but I do want the oral history one day of Andrew Vaughn being thrown an outfielder's mitt at the end of spring training and told, with, I believe, I don't think he played all 3 games, with 2 games under his belt, to start in the major league outfield. It would be way different if these corner outfielders were like, man, these guys are so versatile, the way they were trying to sell Vaughn on us. Well, they're so versatile, they played their way into a corner position because, man, they're at least average. They can handle it. They've shown flashes. Neither of these guys have done that. It's just because they're not dead. They get to still play at the major league level. It's extraordinary. Speaking directly to something Trevor, as a very recent college baseball player, can speak to, you just can't really try to play that way. You can't, it doesn't match that way. That's just not how it works. Although it speaks to how desperate the White Sox are in their system. Trevor, what do you got in terms of, I don't know, something maybe more sustained with this team? What needs to change with these guys?
Yeah, like you were talking about, throwing Vaughn in there at the end of spring training last year and this year, he actually, so I think he's probably been maybe like a 7 out of 10 for what my expectations were coming in. And he's still the worst outfielder in the major leagues. He's the worst outfielder in the major leagues, and he's exceeded expectations. So what they were asking him to do was absolutely crazy. And Sheets, the same thing. Just throwing him into right field. They're 2 first basemen. That's what they are. So that's what I would do in the offseason. I want to preface it by saying that I've gained a ton of respect for Jose Ray this year, totally reinventing himself, playing through injuries that some of these other guys may not be playing through. He's been the one constant this year, and he's been their most productive player this year. But despite all that, I would not re-sign him this offseason. He's a integral part of the clubhouse, so that's something that can't necessarily be defined by numbers. But their clubhouse, these guys aren't showing any fire. He's not really showing any crazy leadership qualities this year. So I'm throwing that out the window. And you're getting rid of your most productive offensive player, but the money that it would take to re-sign him now is freed up to do other things to improve your team as well. And it also frees up first base for all of these guys. They have way too many of these first base DH types, and they need to get more left-handed, and they need to get more flexible defensively. And letting Abreu walk, while it would hurt on an emotional level, it's smart on a business level or on a performance level, in my opinion.
You heard it here first. Trevor Lines, respected member of the Side Sox staff and half of the Dugout Metrics podcast, delicious podcast. It's rumored. It is a rumored podcast. Actually is endorsing giving an additional $20 million to $18 million to Rick Hahn in this offseason. That is a bold take, Trevor. I guess it means he's going to actually make a good move with that $18 million.
That's a crapshoot, but hopefully.
All right, let's do a speed round. I don't know if we're up against it yet here for this extended mix podcast, but there's been talk about, hey, at some point, I think it even came up here, you trade Dylan Cease because he's not going to sign with the Sox. Or there was even talk, listen, are the White Sox going to listen to offers on Lance Lynn? Yeah, what was those offers going to be? Lance Lynn and Lucas Giolito this trade deadline, right? We've heard so many stories about how Jerry Reinsdorf at age 80, 90, whatever he is, had to be dragged into a rebuild by Rick Hahn, right? It looms as a possibility given that, this run with the team, as Trevor just pointed out, the leadership that Jose is supposed to be, this is so highly touted for as the unofficial captain of the team. Well, it's not clicking. I mean, I hope some guys are listening to him, but even like Luis Robert, a guy who's one of the closest players on the team to him, doesn't maybe seem to be listening to him. What is the likelihood of the White Sox shifting into a rebuild at any point in this near future with this core? I don't think it could possibly happen this offseason, no matter how this season ends. But what do you put the likelihood at? We'll start top left corner for the block, and let's go with Dante again. Chances of a rebuild in our near lifetimes.
I'm about to check. I just want to make sure that I'm right about this because I'm pretty sure Tim's contract's coming up soon.
Mm-hmm.
So Tim's contract is 28 a free agent after next season.
Mm-hmm.
And Jose's a free agent this upcoming off season. Luis Robert and Eloy Jimenez don't have that much time left compared to what they could have. So you could feasibly see them being after 2023, depending on where it goes. In 2024 trade deadline, I can see the White Sox have traded Luis Robert for 7 prospects from the Yankees or something to continue building their Death Star of an offense. And then that's where it all begins. Now, again, as I said earlier, do not ever want to be in that universe where Luis Robert is not a member of the Chicago White Sox. Think he's going to end up being one of the best players in baseball. Heck, I still have some hope for Eloy Jimenez, which is mostly built on the fact that I have his jersey.
Yeah, that would have to be the justification.
Yeah. All I need is for him to become Pete Alonso and win some home run W's. We're good. That's all I need.
All right. Yes, that'll make the jersey legit.
We can easily in 2024, 2025 be at the rebuild point if something doesn't change very soon, as in by the end of October, there should be at least 1 or 2 members of the 3-headed monster gone.
Yeah. Okay. That would, Yeah, I don't know. I guess that would be a redevotion to the window of contention. But yeah, you could argue we're even in the beginning stages of it, depending on what happens in these next 6 weeks. Jordan, chances of rebuild, near future.
I think I said it previously, but I think it's trade deadline 2024. If you're not in contention, or if you didn't win a World Series in 2023, that's when you start selling. I think you start soft rebuilding in the middle of 2024, something like trading Giolito, trading Lance Lynn. I think he's still under contract. Or is it that next year? That's when you start looking at some of the older guys. I don't think you start looking at like your Luis Roberts yet in 2024, but you look at your Giolitos, you look at your, who else would be on this team in 2024?
I think the pitcher is going to be Dylan Cease, and that's it.
I mean, that's when you trade. I wouldn't trade Cease yet though. At that point, I think you hold on to a little sliver of hope. You trade some of the guys that are going to get you some of that depth we've been looking for, and maybe sign some guys that off season. And if that doesn't work out, you blow it up in 2025. But
I'll insert my answer to the question. That is, we're already in a rebuild because we have no pitching. Jordan just spoke to that. There's no pitching. I don't know where they're going to get their pitching. You need to have pitching. There already is no pitching, and there's definitely very shortly going to be no pitching. I believe Giolito gone 2024. Lance Lynn may not even, for all we know, might not live to 2024 as a baseball player at least. Okay, Joe Resis, chances of rebuild.
Let's see. It depends on the time frame we're looking at. If for like before the end of 2022, I'd say less than 1%. During 2023, maybe, and I would say maybe like 10% in the off season after like 2023 to 2024. I'm overall not feeling like there will be one in the at least super near term. As long as they have at least a solid chunk of the cornerstones of the rebuild still on the roster, I think that's I don't envision that happening unless they're really struggling next year. What I will say is if they do surprise me and do another rebuild, said sometime before the end of or before the beginning of the 2024 season, I really hope that Rick Hahn is not part of it. We've seen the movie play out before now. So if this rebuilds with this core is going to end in 2 early playoff exits and that's it, then that would have been the result of them being in a good position to start a rebuild with in 2016 with Chris Sale, Jose Quintana, Adam Eaton. That was his value never got higher. He was a premium trade chip then. So if Rick Hahn couldn't make it work with all of that going for him, then I certainly wouldn't want him to do it the next time.
Yeah, the man, if he has any dignity, he would just resign, because this is just no. And I think what Dante said, I think this could really hinge, if we're talking about this, which is preposterous. And you could argue with the pitching they have, they might already be in sort of a pitching rebuild. Might really hinge on Tim Anderson. But we'll see. Boy, there are a lot of question marks around Tim Anderson. That is for sure. Okay, Trevor, give me your likelihood of rebuild, with or without Rick Hahn.
Yeah, I'm kind of with Joe. I hadn't even really thought about it until you brought it up. But within the next year, less than 1%. Within the next 2 years, I would put it at maybe 5%. Now that we're kind of talking it out, and then 3 years is kind of a long time into the future to really make any super set predictions that I would feel strongly in. Who knows at that point, but that's kind of next 2 years. I don't really see it happening.
I would never be a guy, as you can tell by all the times I mentioned dugout metrics, I would never be a guy who would haunt you over a prediction you made 3 years in the future, Trevor. So don't worry about that.
I would
You
haunt
are
myself.
safe.
I would haunt myself. I take my predictions seriously. Bobby Dahlbeck over 27 home runs. I'm still so mad I made it. He's not going to get close.
Okay, Adrian, finish it up here. Chances of a rebuild, especially because you're just rooting for fun bad. So are you a little bit more on the rebuild train?
I mean, by year, like a full rebuild, like what we saw, 0% chance until 4 or 5 years out. We're probably on Andrew Vaughn's clock for like a full rebuild.
Okay.
The clock on this particular core is probably trade deadline 2023. If they struggle again, Lucas Giolito is the first chip to fall, free agent after next season. And then right behind him is Tim Anderson. So then they have to make another decision about, that would be more of like a reshuffling of the core. And then the Tim Anderson decision would be the next big signifier of like whether they're going to pay somebody real money. Because it's, regardless of what's going on, his numbers are going to warrant them having to pay real star player money to that Tim Anderson contract in one shape or form. They can try to skirt away on Lucas, which it seems like they're going to try to do. But they're going to have to find pitching somewhere if they're going to choose to go that route. But so basically we're looking like kind of year by year, unfortunately, which is a bad place to be as a fan and a team. Unless we get a big shift in the direction of if a new general manager comes in, who knows, maybe then they, want to clear the deck and bring some of their guys in, and it's going to be a couple years. But if Rick stays and Kenny stays, next year is 1 year to watch. That's the only year I could see in earnest that they go forward again with this core as assembled, with or without Jose Abreu, obviously is a question mark, but I just can't justify paying Jose Abreu the money he's getting made now unless he's still going to be a 30+ home run guy. And like, great, I'm glad he's hitting more singles and his average is up a little bit, but like he's really more of like a 6-hitter now in the way he's approaching, and I don't know if I can put that much payroll towards a 6-hitter in this lineup.
Yeah, let's pull back the camera and acknowledge that I am addressing, granted, it's my fault, I brought it up. We are talking about a rebuild in the middle of a contention window. Yes, White Sox, you have done this to us by being 500 with 6 weeks left in the season. Shame on you all. Hey, but not all of you listening, you dear readers, dear listeners, dear viewers. Without you, we would not be here. Thank you, Dante, Jordan, Adrian, Trevor Lines, just out of nowhere. Love it. Straight out of Louisville. And representing the Indianapolis field office is Super Joseph Resis. Thanks everybody for listening, watching. We'll be back at you. I don't know, soon, maybe not. Maybe this is the last one of the season. Who knows? I'll keep you guessing.